Hi colleagues, good day and welcome to my session which is related to the test automation and the DevOps practice. So today we'll speak about the regression minimization with the new tool which we have been open sourced a year ago named Drill4J, and I will describe you how you can minimize your regression set by means of the test-to-code mapping. So who is this guy? My name is Dmitry Gumenyuk and I'm a project manager and I'm driving the product portfolio within the DevTestSecOps practice and having the Java development background in the past. So currently I have 5 products in portfolio which helps you to speed up the test automation and brings it to the new level, basically helping to resolve the main DevOps challenges. So today we will speak about regression and how we can minimize it with the value and how you can benefit from it. So the question is like, what's the problem about the regression? Why we do need to minimize it and somehow spend the time for it? So the main issue and the main challenge which we have in the DevOps is actually the speed. So with the natural growth of your test automation within your software life cycle, you start to implement more and more test cases, which means you need to spend more and more time and effort to execute these results and receive the results. So following this natural growth, you have more and more these test cases, which usually brings you to the course of the modern software where developers have too many tests to run prior to the code check-in. So in this situation, they start to follow pretty costly coping strategy, not to run and not to execute all the test cases within the infrastructure or right on the local machine right after the commit, but basically shift it to the integration environment and rely on the results from the integration environments. And usually it comes to the situation that when it becomes true, some of these test cases often start to fail, to fall into the despair and start to return in irrelevant results. So even in the worst situation, some of the developers just decide to remove such a test cases out of the pipeline just because they give the slow feedback, the feedback is irrelevant, and nobody can trust this. And the most common and the most known approach is the testing pyramid, which asks you to run the most fastest test cases with the highest priority and leave the longest test cases for the past. But once you start to work with this and then address this challenge, one can say like, okay, let's just take the coverage and work with the coverage. But the issue about the coverage is that it's super plain metric, which doesn't give you much of the information, but just know the information how much of your test code was covered by your test. But what if we can make it more actionable? And in this regards, we can use so-called coverage change and convert it into the actionable feedback. So just imagine the case if we can know what part of this code change was was a new code and which part of it just like modified code. If we have this information, we definitely know what part of the code was modified and what part of the code was added, which gives us the information and the evidence like how good we are in testing of our new code or newly introduced code and how we good in retesting of existing code. And all this brings us to the theory of the test impact analysis and test gap analytics. So once you have the test cases, you can see them on the left and the application code on the right. If you can know and collect information which particular methods were triggered during the test case execution and store this information, you can use it later for back engineering, like defined. Okay, if I know that this particular test case will execute that particular methods within the application, if I know that, I also can know that I need to execute those test cases in order to check that particular method. And we call this action as test-to-code mapping, which helps us to bring the magic into the on the stage. So how test-to-code mapping can resolve the issues, how it can address your challenge. So let's see it in a basic representation. For instance, you have the application with a list of the methods which were implemented by the developers. So once you start the list of the test cases or your regression suite against the application, Drill4J can record the mapping between each method and test which have been triggered. So let's say we have test case 1, which triggers that list of the methods on a backend, then the test case 2 with the set of all methods, then the test case 3 and the rest of them. So once we have this test-to-code mapping recorded within the Drill4J application, and on the next code commit, on the next code increment, once the developer makes the change within the application, you will receive the new build of the application where you can compare and take the information from it, and you basically can know that what part of the application have been changed. In comparing this change with the test-to-code mapping, which is already available within the Drill4J, you know which particular test cases should be executed in order to verify this change. And this is the test impact analysis in a simple terms. So what's next here? Once you have all the test cases identified and you know which of them should be executed in order to verify this change, basically you don't need to run all suite, you don't need to spend hours to execute everything. You can just reorganize or reorder this execution in order to start the required one with the highest priority. So basically shift them closer right to the code commit which made by the developer. And also, if you have the information which test cases were failing previously, you can also prioritize them to be executed first. And that kind of the approach gives you the possibility to find 95% of all issues, of all possible issues within your application just in 5% of the time you used previously. Sounds sweet. Okay, let's see how it works within the application itself. Here we see the application administration part, which should be deployed on your premises along with the application. The Drill4J is actually the platform which allows you to execute variety of the plugins which can read the information and basically instrument your application right in real time to receive this information. So we use this information in order to read the instructions and collect the test-to-code mapping right in real time within the Drill4J application. So again, it's open sourced, it's free, and can be deployed on your premises along with your application, unlike any competitors which you can find in the market. So again, what we see here is the Drill admin with the installed plugin within the basic standalone application Pet Clinic, the example of the Spring application. So I will drill down into it and see the dashboard, which gives me information for the latest execution. But let's just quickly jump to the list of the builds which were received by the Drill4J. So we see the build number 1 with not much of the information right there, just because of it's a starting point. It's zero ground and you need to start to collect the information. But let's see what we have here in details. It shows you that we have 25% of the code mapped with the test cases. We have executed 13 test cases already, some of them automated, some of them manual. Let's see in details. It also shows you that we have total on 98, almost 100 of the methods. All the rest are zeros because of, again, it's a starting point. And you also can see the exact code base which is available within the application. Drill4J doesn't use any sort of the GitHub or GitLab and doesn't read the code from the storage, but it reads the instructions right from the application, which means that it uses the only source of truth, your application, and the most solid evidence which you can find within your code repository. again, we see all the methods and how the packages, how they have been covered. We see how many methods it has, how many of them covered, and how many test cases were associated with that particular set of the methods. We also can jump to the list of the test cases which have been executed against that particular application, which of them are failing, which of them passed, and how many methods they did trigger during the execution. So that's what we call test-to-code mapping. But now let's jump to the new build, and let's assume for the build 1, that was the final point when all the testing was completed. For the build number 2, it's a 0 point when we just received the new application built from the incremental change made by the developer. So we have no information, and let's see what Drill4J gives us in that stage. So again, jump into the details, and simple dashboard shows us that we have 4 risks within the application, which means we have one of new method which was introduced within the code increment, and 3 methods have been modified within the application. We also have the suggestion from the Drill4J which test cases 5 out of 13 we should execute in order to verify this change and minimize the risks. So which basically means that Drill4J helps you to control and keep at the same level the number of risks you can introduce within applications starting from today, and also will help you to minimize it with each and next execution. So let's see what we have here. We see that we now have 97 methods. One method is new and it marked as a risk, because currently, again, we're at the starting point, nothing have been tested. We also have 3 risks right there, 3 methods which have been modified but not tested. All of them collected to the scope of the risks, which should be reduced during your testing cycles. We also have proposals of the test or suggestion of the test which should be executed within your pipeline, and you can easily integrate it with your Jenkins job or with the testing pipeline, no matter which CI you use there. You can copy this CURL request in order to receive the JSON response, JSON standard response, and use it within your testing framework just to execute the proper set of the test cases. And we also can configure the quality gate, which can be used within your Jenkins pipeline in order to verify do you have any new risks introduced, how many test cases you skipped within the execution, and did you increase the coverage of the application itself. So let's just put 20 here, 1 risk, okay, to be saved here, and 0 test cases to be executed. Save, and it shows us that currently at, again, 0 point, we have quality gate failed. But let's see what we can make here. I will switch to the Jenkins job. It's prepared Jenkins job, which will execute the test cases against the application and will run the API test. So I will just click the build button. And while it's preparing the execution, let's switch to the Drill4J and see how it works right there. So as I said, we collect results right in real time. And once the coverage and the interaction with the application will start, you will see the record button and some of the visualization that work is in progress. So let's see how the mapping increase test by test case and jump into the scope which we currently have in active stage. So you see how the number of the test cases growing, how many methods have been triggered, and we also can see in real time how the coverage of the application is changing. So once it finalized, we see how much did it take to execute, how much test cases have been executed, what are the statuses, how did it cover, and the next step what I can make here, I can finish the scope. The scope is the kind of the special bucket, how you can distribute or split the phases of your application testing. So let's finish the scope of the API testing, and it will jump right to the overall build coverage, and let's see what it changes. Now we have only one test case proposed for or suggested for the execution, because the rest of them was executed according to the Drill4J ask. We have only 2 risks left there. 2 of them will have been covered by and retested by executed test cases which were proposed by the Drill4J, and still we did not met the quality gate. So what else I can make here? The pretty sweet part about the Drill4J that it can work not only with the automated test, but also it can be used with the manual test case execution. So for that reason, the only thing you have to have is the basic Chrome extension, which can be downloaded right from the Chrome magazine and deployed within your browser in a matter of seconds. So I just started, and it shows me that application, which is right now on the screen, have connected plugin of the Drill4J. It's online, and what I can do, just run the widget, which will stay on top of the page for the whole cycle of the testing and will help me to collect the information. I also can minimize and close it, but it still will collect the information in real time. So what I can do right here, I can just type the name of the test, or for instance the ID of the test case, which manual test case, which is executed now, and start the test. Let's jump to the application and see that we have the visualizations that currently we record this session, which triggers the method within the backend, but no any action happens. So I will jump back to the application, click to the variety of the actions, open up the owner, edit the owner, invoke the error, set something new, again too big, save, jump there, generate the error, back home. And we can see in real time how the scope coverage is changing, how many risks we did address by this test, and how many total methods have been covered by this test. So let's just finish the test and jump back to the application. And now we see how many of new coverage, or how many of new mapping, or how good we were in testing the application. So it shows us the overlapped coverage between automated session and the manual session, and it shows us how many more methods have been addressed by the manual execution. So let me just finish that scope and see what happens with numbers. You see that now we have just 0 test cases which have should be executed or suggested by the Drill4J. So we are good in here, and we did retest all changes which were found. But we still have 2 risks within the application which should be implemented, which should be covered by the test cases. And here comes the next benefit of the Drill4J, since your developers and the QA engineers can have the single context, the single source of truth, and basically use this information to, a QA engineer can go to the developer and ask, okay guys, I have this method uncovered, which sort of the test case I should implement in order to cover that particular method. And it's pretty easily understandable for the QA engineer, the same like the code base of the application is super easy thing to understand by the developer. And in that case, QA engineer can implement the automated test to cover this change, the same way like developer can or create a unit test in order to cover this change. So again, let's see what we have uncovered there, and try to address, show resource, blah blah blah. Let's just try. Not sure I will catch it. Let's start. See the list, find owners, add the new owner, turn to city, and the phone number. Add new pet. Okay, the error, home, finish the test. Let's see. We definitely did increase the coverage and introduce new part which were covered manually right there. But let's see, do we address the risk? No, we was not lucky. So anyway, in that case, we can address and change our quality gate. And let's define that 2 risks introduced within the application is good for us. So now we can see that the quality gate in that configuration will pass. And this is the go or not go decision for the Jenkins job or for your pipeline in order to decide whether we can go to the next stage of the pipeline or no. So again, let's just quickly summarize. Drill4J can suggest you the minimized set of the test cases which you should execute in order to verify introduced code changes. It can track modified methods, deleted methods, and new methods. So you can be sure how good you in covering of the modified code, in covering and testing newly introduced code, and even remove unneeded test cases which cover the deleted part of the application. You also can see how you cover your application with the manual and automated test cases, which basically give you the information how you can reduce the set of the manual test cases by removing those test cases which already covered by the automated set. For the next versions of the application, we will add this separate screen which will give you this information at a glance. You also can use the Drill4J as a quality gate within your pipeline just in order to verify how good you are in testing the application. Did you execute all the tests which are required, and have you introduced new risks within the application or no? And having the possibility to configure the quality gate, you can decide, are you like full tolerant for the new risks, or like you have 0 tolerance for the untested part of the application. And at the end of the day, if you have this minimized set of the test cases which can be populated right from the Drill4J application to the pipeline of your developers, they can receive and start the super small set of the test cases in order to receive the quick feedback for the code increment, which means that it will minimize the chance that developers will read off the test cases and remove them from the pipeline, or basically leave them for integration environment and just do not check the results of the testing. So that's the application. Let's switch to the rest part of my presentation. Okay, that was the demo of the application. Now let's see how it works from the technical perspective. Currently Drill4J works with the JVM-based application, so which means that for those applications which implemented with Java. So how the Drill4J works, the pretty important benefit which you should remember, that it doesn't affect your code base. Drill4J plugin will be connected right to the JVM by means of the native interfaces provided by the JVM machine, in order to receive the information right from the deepest level of the application and the Java machine itself. So Drill4J plugin uses this information and see and read the instructions, which helps to understand what part of the application have been changed, what was deleted, added, modified, and etc. It also can track the information which instructions and methods have been triggered during the execution, and also track the network access, or all the requests and responses received by the application. So once we have the Drill4J plugin installed within your application, it also can be switched on or switched off in a matter of seconds, which basically means there is no need for a separate stage within your pipeline where you test the application with the Drill4J. You just basically use it at the same QA environment which you have for the rest of the team. And it also allows you to, again, switch it off in a matter of seconds. Once you have Drill4J plugin installed, it will intercept all the HTTP calls requests from your tests, no matter it's API test or it's calls from the browser made to the server of the application. And Drill4J uses quite simple and standardized way to populate the data within the HTTP request. For that reason, we need the drill wrapper. That's just like a small modification or small extension on the side of the test cases in order to populate this information into the request. And Drill4J basically adds the HTTP headers which describe that this particular request belongs to the Drill4J, that particular request belongs to the session number X, and that particular request belongs to the test case number Y. And all the rest, like you can also track which particular user or QA engineer does that testing, or which particular, like any sort of the information. Which basically means that for that reason you can use Drill4J not only for the API tests, but for any sort of the test cases, for API, for UI test cases, for security tests, for performance tests, and as I showed you, for the manual test cases right from your browser as well. And also Drill4J can work not only with the monolithic application, but with the microservices-based applications as well. It will have the connection to each of the microservice and will collect the information in one set of like a complex container, which will unify all the information from the rest of the group of the microservices which you have within the application. How you can use it with your test? It's quite simple. Once you have wrapper added, you just populate information about where your application, like Drill4J application, deployed, and what's the agent you want to use there. Basically, that's what once added works all the time. The rest part is which you should add within your Java application. No any rocket science here. You just add this line in order to start your Java application with the connected plugin. You also can do it once, and usually, like, you can ask your DevOps or engineers to make it, and it will take, like, I don't know, several minutes, 10 minutes, less than half an hour to put it in place. How you can use it in the pipeline? You just add the CURL request, which can take the information from the Drill4J, and it will return you the JSON file with the suggestion which test cases you need to execute. The same way you can use it for the quality gates, and Drill4J will return you the responses like, are you good to go or not good to go here. Okay, so how you can benefit with the Drill4J and usage of it at your project? First of all, it can help you to remove overlap test cases between automated test cases and the manual test cases, which will help you to speed up your regression by minimization of the manual effort and just leave that work for the automated test cases if it's already covered by them. You reduce the number of the manual test cases by the evidence and real means of the application coverage, not just like because of the backbone filling. You also can minimize this regression itself and receive the super fast feedback on top of the code increment which was made by the developer, and this allows engineers to receive the results in a matter of like minutes and avoid the situation where you have the integration infrastructure failing because of the number of the issues. It really saves the time and effort for the for shifting right development. Clear the evidence. Clear evidence and the single context. Again, you use the super solid evidence of the application coverage and how you address and map and test your application right from the application instructions, rather than by the prioritization and the feeling that this part was covered and this part was not. And it brings and creates the single context between the developers and the testers, which can easily describe for both sides which part of the application was untested and what should be done in order to cover and test this part of the application. And again, it's pretty secured. It can work and should work on your premises, basically deployed on within your infrastructure. No need to send the data outside of your internet somewhere on other servers, unlike other competitors which exist. And again, we are open sourced, we are pretty flexible and configurable, which means that you can even extend the Drill4J according to your needs at your project, and extend the Drill4J to work with your particular or super special technological stack. What we do offer, we can provide you some service offering there, a managed service by dedicated service team or core product team, which can help you with the POC stages, with the adoptions, with the more scaled way, with the transformation of the way how you do test and how you build the continuous testing at your project. And also we can implement the customizations if that's required within the application for you. So for that reason, just contact me directly via the email, or you can also drop the request to the service desk of our testing competency center, and we can discuss it with you. We also can organize a separate demo for your client and show the capabilities and define the next step and stages which can be offered to the client. The main links to remember today is the Drill4J GitHub pages. You can find our landing page, you can find the Drill4J organization on the GitHub. We are distributed under the Apache license, which is free to use without much of the limitations there. And again, main things to remember. It should be used on your premises, and it can be used on your premises. It also right now works for the Java-based applications, and we also expect to have .NET capabilities to cover .NET applications in the next quarter of 2021. So that's it for today. Again, contact me in case you have any questions, and thank you guys for this awesome session. You are very welcome with any questions you have. Stay safe. Bye.